Everyone in the diner ignored him. Some sneered, some whispered, "Who does he think he is?" A few dared to laugh. His quiet presence radiated authority, though no one in the room understood why. Then Maya, a sharp-minded black waitress, leaned over with a polite smile and greeted him in flawless Mandarin. The entire diner froze. Whispers stopped. Phones were subtly raised. The laughter died. No one realized that the man they had dismissed as just another customer was Kuan Yin, billionaire CEO, global innovator, and a man whose next decision could ruin or redeem every person in that room. Maya's words, casual and innocent, carried weight. With a single greeting, she had unknowingly stepped into a storm that would change lives, hers included. Before we continue, I want to speak to you for a moment. If stories like this remind you that kindness still exists, if they make you feel something real in a world that's getting louder and colder, then I'd love to have you here with us. This channel isn't just videos, it's a tiny corner of the internet where good people come together, where we believe in second chances, in hope, and in humanity. And right now, you're early. You're part of the very first people building this family with me. So if you want to grow with us, if you want more stories that touch your heart, go ahead and subscribe. It's free, it supports the channel more than you know, and it tells me that there are still people out there who believe in kindness just as much as I do. If you have subscribed to this channel, I can officially say, welcome to the family. The Peachtree Diner was alive with morning chaos, plates clattering, coffee brewing, customers chatting, and a faint smell of bacon lingering in the air. Maya balanced a tray in one hand and a notepad in the other, weaving between tables with practiced ease. Across the room, at booth 7, sat a quiet man in a flannel shirt, sipping tea alone. Something about him didn't scream attention.
The staff ignored him, or worse, dismissed him outright.
"Table 7, we're full," Tina, the hostess, said loudly when he asked for a seat. "Come back later," Lance, the manager, muttered, barely looking up from the register. Even the customers treated him like a ghost. Bradley, a young man with a phone always ready to film, snickered and whispered to his friends, "Look at this guy, just sitting there, like he doesn't belong." Maya noticed him differently. There was a quiet dignity about the man, a calm that didn't fit the rushed energy of the diner. And then she noticed his eyes, dark, observing, and intelligent. Something in her told her he deserved more than the dismissive glances and laughs around him. She approached him carefully, taking a deep breath. Her voice was soft but deliberate. "Nin hao, 请问您想要点什么?" she said. The words hung in the air. Maya held her breath, suddenly aware that she had just greeted a stranger in Mandarin, a language most of the diner had never heard. The man looked up and his eyes, alert, calm and surprisingly kind, met hers. Then, with a faint smile, he replied in perfect Mandarin. 我想要一碗鸡汤, 谢谢. Maya froze for a heartbeat, stunned. He had responded in the same language, fluent, natural, not a hint of accent, just smooth, confident speech. Around her, the diner buzzed obliviously. Lance shook his head and muttered, "What's she doing?" Tina rolled her eyes, but Maya's attention was entirely on the man before her. She repeated his words for him with a polite nod. "You want the chicken soup? Coming right up." Something shifted in the diner that moment. Bradley lowered his phone mid-recording, curiosity replacing amusement. Some of the regulars turned their heads, noticing the interaction. There was a strange gravity about the scene that couldn't be ignored. The man, Kuan Yin, she would later learn, sat back, calm and composed.
He didn't look like a man who needed to be noticed.
But now, he was. Not because of a flashy suit or a title, but because Maya had seen him as a person first and greeted him in his own language. Maya walked away to place the order, heart racing, glancing back at him. The quiet smile on his face lingered in her mind. Who was this man? And why did greeting him in Mandarin feel like the most important decision she'd made all week? Kuan Yin lifted his cup slightly, acknowledging Maya with a faint nod. Her pulse quickened. Something about him felt monumental. And for reasons she couldn't yet explain, she knew her life, and perhaps the entire diner, was about to change. As Maya approached booth 7 with the tray of soup, her eyes were drawn again to the man she had greeted in Mandarin. Something glimmered at his throat, a jade pendant, smooth and slightly worn, yet clearly cared for. It hung from a thin leather cord, resting against his chest, as if it were a piece of himself. Curiosity pricked at her. "That's beautiful," she said softly in Mandarin, gesturing toward it. The man, Kuan Yin, lifted the pendant slightly in his hand, tracing the delicate carvings with his thumb. His dark eyes met hers, and he spoke slowly, deliberately, in Mandarin. "This belonged to my grandmother," he said. "It has survived wars, famine, revolutions. It reminds me that wealth is meaningless without honor, and that kindness is more valuable than gold." Maya felt a shiver run down her spine. Something in his tone, in the quiet weight of his words, demanded attention. She glanced around. The diner had started to notice the exchange. Patrons, curious, began leaning slightly forward, trying to catch the words. Instinctively, Maya began translating for those within earshot. Her voice was soft but steady, weaving Kuan Yin's Mandarin into English so the diners could understand. "He says this pendant is a family heirloom, that through all the hardship,
It has taught him that a person's worth is measured by kindness, not possessions."
Some of the regulars murmured appreciatively. A few even leaned back in their chairs, silently nodding as they absorbed the depth of the story. Bradley, the young man with the phone, lowered it halfway, mesmerized. Behind the counter, Lance huffed, clearly unimpressed. "Maya, just do your job. Nobody cares about some story," he muttered under his breath. Tina rolled her eyes, muttering, "Here we go again." But the words fell flat against the growing, quiet reverence at the other tables. Kuan Yin continued in Mandarin, his voice carrying a gentle authority. "This pendant is more than jade. It is a reminder of patience, integrity, and respect. My grandmother gave it to me when I was young. She said, 'Treat everyone with dignity, even those who cannot return it. That is the measure of a true life.'" Maya repeated the words in English. The diner's attention sharpened. Even those who had scoffed at his quiet demeanor before now found themselves leaning forward, caught in the gravity of the story. She watched Kuan Yin closely. His hands were steady, and yet there was a softness in the way he spoke of his grandmother. The pendant, though simple, seemed to carry generations of history in its carved curves and polished surface. Maya's mind raced. Why was a man with such presence, someone whose calm commanded attention without even trying, sitting in a casual flannel shirt at a small diner in Atlanta? Why was he here, unassuming, among people who didn't even know the value of the moment unfolding before them? A chill ran down her spine as she realized the story was deeply personal, far more than a tale of heritage. There was a quiet power in the way he spoke, a connection to something greater than himself, and Maya sensed that she was witnessing a man whose life had been shaped by resilience and principles that few could comprehend. Her tray of soup trembled slightly in her hands as she translated his final words. "Wealth can be lost, titles can fade, but honor and compassion endure. Remember this." The diner had fallen silent, save for the clink of spoons against bowls. Even Lance seemed momentarily struck, though he quickly looked away, unwilling to admit it. Bradley's phone had forgotten to record. His video lay unnoticed in his pocket. Maya exhaled slowly, realizing something profound. This was not just a casual diner visit. Every word, every gesture, every pause carried weight. As Kuan Yin adjusted the pendant against his chest, Maya caught herself staring in awe. Who is this man, really? Why does his presence feel monumental, even in a flannel shirt, in a simple diner? And more urgently, what is he doing here, in Atlanta, at this very moment? Maya carefully poured a cup of tea for Kuan Yin, placing it gently on the table. Around them, the diner buzzed with the usual noise, sizzling from the grill, orders being called, laughter from a corner booth. But Maya could feel a subtle shift in the atmosphere. Bradley, the young man who'd been filming earlier, kept glancing at Kuan Yin, his phone trembling in his hand. Without looking up, Kuan Yin's eyes caught the faint reflection of Bradley's screen from across the room. A small, knowing smile curved his lips. He didn't scold or yell. He didn't demand Bradley stop. He simply glanced down at his own phone, swiping and tapping with a fluid precision that seemed almost ceremonial. Bradley froze. The subtle shift in Kuan Yin's presence was unnerving, the calm authority so strong it pressed against the edges of the room. Whispering, Bradley muttered to himself, Who is this guy?" Meanwhile, Maya returned to her station, balancing plates with practiced ease. She ignored the snickers from Lance and Tina, who were once again commenting on how this guy is probably just another weirdo. But Maya's attention kept snapping back to Kuan Yin. Something about the way he existed in the space around him, quiet, unobtrusive, yet impossible to ignore, was commanding. She noticed the subtle signs. People instinctively gave him more space when he reached for something. Regular patrons unconsciously straightened, voices lowered. Even the diner's youngest busboy hesitated when passing by his table, almost as if sensing that interrupting him would be improper. Maya's stomach knotted with a mixture of curiosity and awe. Kuan Yin spoke softly in Mandarin, not loud enough for everyone to hear. Maya translated quietly for herself, careful not to draw attention. He spoke of landscapes, rivers, cities across continents, his words hinting at influence and projects that sounded almost mythical in scale. "What is he talking about?" one elderly regular muttered under his breath, peeking over his menu. Maya shrugged. She didn't know the full extent, but she knew enough to realize this man was not ordinary. Then, Kuan Yin casually mentioned a dinner meeting. His Mandarin words flowed effortlessly, precise and deliberate. Maya nearly dropped the plate in her hands as she translated to herself. "After dinner tonight, I must review plans for our next renewable energy projects and international development initiatives." Her mind raced. Renewable energy? International development? Projects across multiple countries? What kind of man sits casually in a small Atlanta diner, speaking of dinner meetings and investments like this? Even nearby patrons caught fragments of the conversation. A young woman leaned over to whisper to her friend, "Did he just say he's managing projects across continents?" Maya's hands were trembling slightly as she set down another cup of tea. Despite his casual demeanor, Kuan Yin's words carried weight, and the diner seemed to sense it. The room had fallen into an unconscious rhythm, with his calm aura pulling attention without a single raised voice. Bradley lowered his phone,
finally realizing that recording this man was not a clever joke, but a potentially catastrophic decision. He exchanged a nervous glance with a friend at the counter. We're definitely underestimating him," he muttered. Kuan Yin smiled faintly at Maya as she returned to refill his tea. "Thank you for your care," he said in Mandarin. Maya bowed slightly, replying, "It is my honor." The simple exchange, polite and respectful, carried more weight than any extravagant gesture. Maya realized that the man's influence didn't announce itself with grandeur or flamboyance. It whispered. It existed in every glance, every careful word, every controlled movement. She had served hundreds of customers before, but none had this presence. None had commanded attention without demanding it. She glanced around. Lance was muttering under his breath, a frown darkening his face. Tina had stopped rolling her eyes and was now pretending to be busy while sneaking glances at the booth. Even Bradley's friend had abandoned the phone entirely, frozen in a mix of fascination and fear. Kuan Yin spoke again, this time in English, almost casually. Some decisions made at tonight's dinner could impact millions. Lives, communities, opportunities, all in balance. His voice was calm, almost conversational, but every word felt deliberate, like the weight of a gavel coming down softly but irrevocably. Maya froze mid-step. The casual tone, the nonchalant delivery. This man wasn't just a stranger in her diner. He was someone who shaped the world quietly, efficiently, and without need for recognition.
Maya froze mid-step. The casual tone, the nonchalant delivery. This man wasn't just a stranger in her diner. He was someone who shaped the world quietly, efficiently, and without need for recognition. Kuan Yin glanced at Maya and smiled faintly. "Maya, there are bridges to be built tonight," he said in Mandarin, the words flowing over her like water, serene yet commanding. Bridges. She repeated the word quietly to herself. What kind of bridges? And what role could she, a simple waitress in a bustling diner, possibly play in them? The diner's noise seemed to fade, replaced by the silent realization. This man was far more powerful than anyone could have imagined, and somehow she was at the center of it. The clatter of plates and chatter in the diner seemed normal at first, but a subtle tension began to build as the soft pings of phones echoed across the tables. Bradley, the young TikTok filmer, was the first to notice. He froze mid-recording, his eyes glued to his phone screen. A flood of notifications was appearing, tweets, Instagram posts, news alerts, all featuring Kuan Yin. "Wait, that's him," Bradley whispered to his friend, pointing at the man sitting quietly with his tea. His friend leaned over, phone in hand, scrolling frantically. Headlines screamed, "Mysterious diner guest revealed as billionaire CEO," and "Chinese tech magnate behind Phoenix Technologies spotted in Atlanta diner." Lance, who had been rolling his eyes just moments ago, stiffened as he noticed the phones in the hands of customers, snapping pictures, typing furiously, and sharing videos. Tina's mouth dropped open, and for the first time she looked genuinely worried. Maya, who had been serving a table of regulars, felt a shift in the room. Unlike the others, she had never been dismissive. She had greeted Kuan Yin politely, spoken Mandarin to him, and treated him with genuine respect. Now the contrast was painfully clear. Her kindness and attentiveness were highlighted against the ignorance and arrogance of the rest of the staff. Customers who had laughed earlier now stared, whispers spreading like wildfire. "That's him. He's worth billions," one woman muttered. "The man we were laughing at?" Another pointed at Bradley, shaking her head. "And he's being filmed right now?" Lance swallowed hard, feeling a knot form in his stomach. All the little smirks and rude comments, the dismissive gestures, he had been completely wrong. The realization that he had been rude to one of the most powerful men in the world hit him like a punch. Maya felt a quiet pride in contrast. She had been nervous, yes, but she had chosen respect. She had greeted him in Mandarin, and it had mattered. She saw Kuan Yin's faint smile, almost imperceptible, directed at her. It wasn't condescending, it was appreciative. Then the low hum of engines grew louder outside. A convoy of sleek black SUVs pulled up to the diner, their tinted windows reflecting the morning sun. Security personnel in dark suits emerged, scanning the area with professional precision. The entire diner froze. Plates stopped mid-air, conversations cut off, and even the cooks behind the counter seemed to hesitate. Maya's heart raced. She watched as the agents moved with quiet authority, forming a perimeter around the diner. The tension was palpable, a mixture of fear, awe, and disbelief. Bradley fumbled with his phone, trying to film everything, but even he seemed intimidated by the sheer presence of the security detail. Kuan Yin remained calm, finishing his tea with deliberate grace. He looked at Maya, his eyes briefly meeting hers, and she felt a silent question in his gaze. "Will you step back, or will you follow?" Lance muttered under his breath. "Is he leaving?" But Maya knew better. She could see it in the man's posture, the patience, the quiet control, the sense that everything was proceeding exactly as he intended. One of the security guards approached the diner's entrance, nodding to Kuan Yin. He rose slowly, a small but deliberate movement, signaling that something significant was about to happen. The diner seemed to hold its collective breath. Maya clutched a towel in her hands, unsure whether to stand aside or step closer. Every instinct in her told her that this moment was pivotal, not just for the diners who had mocked him, but for her. Kuan Yin glanced around the room, his Mandarin words soft and measured, almost inaudible. "Bridges are built with courage, not fear." Maya understood immediately, translating in her mind. He was giving them a choice, change or remain blinded by ignorance. The security detail moved closer, forming a line near the entrance. Cameras flashed outside as paparazzi and onlookers tried to capture the arrival of the billionaire. The diner was no longer just a diner. It was a stage, a place where the world's attention had suddenly turned. Kuan Yin straightened, turned to Maya, and said quietly, Are you ready to see what comes next? The words carried weight, promise, and mystery. Maya's pulse raced. Was he going to leave quietly, leaving chaos behind? Or was something extraordinary about to happen that would change not just her life, but the lives of everyone in that diner forever? The diner held its collective breath, waiting for the next move, as the quiet man who had been dismissed by all prepared to reveal the power he had quietly carried. The diner had fallen completely silent. Every eye was on Kuan Yin, who now stood, calm yet commanding, at the center of the room. His presence was magnetic, and even the regulars who had initially ignored him felt an involuntary respect. Disrespect and prejudice have no place here, or anywhere, Kuan Yin said, his voice carrying the perfect balance of calmness and authority. Every person deserves to be treated with dignity, regardless of appearance, language, or background. The words struck Lance like a physical blow. He had spent the morning smirking at Maya and the quiet man in flannel, but now all his arrogance evaporated, his face drained of color. Tina, who had barely lifted an eyebrow when Maya spoke in Mandarin, realized too late that she had allowed bias to cloud her judgment. Bradley fidgeted with his phone, the viral video still recording, capturing every word Kuan Yin spoke. By the time the managers and corporate representatives arrived, called in by Kuan Yin's office, the consequences were swift and decisive. Lance was terminated on the spot. Tina was placed in mandatory cultural sensitivity and training courses, her social media posts already under scrutiny. Bradley's TikTok, which had initially been meant as humor, exploded across the internet. Millions had seen the video of him mocking Kuan Yin, and the backlash was immediate. Comments flooded in, condemning him for disrespect and racism. Amid the chaos, Maya stood quietly, her heart still racing. She hadn't done anything extraordinary, just the right thing, but now the magnitude of the moment hit her. Kuan Yin's eyes met hers, and he offered the faintest of smiles, acknowledging her courage. "Miss Maya," he said softly, "you saw me as a person, not a headline, not a story, not a curiosity. You treated me with respect and humanity. That is a rare quality, and it matters more than you can imagine." Maya's hands trembled. She had never expected recognition from someone of his stature. I did what felt right," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Kuan Yin's smile widened slightly, genuine this time. "And that is exactly why you must consider the path before you. You have insight, courage, and the ability to bridge divides that many cannot even perceive. I would like to offer you mentorship." Maya blinked, unsure she heard him correctly. "Mentorship?" she echoed, her voice trembling. "Yes," he confirmed, nodding. "I want you to see the world beyond this diner, to understand how influence can create real change. There are opportunities, projects, initiatives, programs where someone like you with vision and compassion could make a lasting impact." Her mind raced. Mentorship from Kuan Yin, the billionaire CEO of Phoenix Technologies, someone she had first met only hours ago? It sounded impossible, surreal, but the sincerity in his tone left no room for doubt. Just as Maya was beginning to process, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a call from an unknown number. She hesitated for a moment before answering. "Miss Maya Matthews?" a calm, professional voice asked. "Yes, this is Maya," she replied cautiously. "This is Lawrence Park, executive assistant to Mr. Kuan Yin. He would like to meet with you at his foundation office. A private meeting has been arranged at your convenience. Is this afternoon possible?" Maya's heart skipped. I think so. Yes," she stammered. "Excellent," Lawrence said smoothly. "A car will be dispatched to pick you up. Please be ready in 1 hour." The line went dead. Maya sank into her chair, disbelief and excitement battling inside her. This was beyond anything she could have imagined. Her mind flashed to her family, her small apartment, and the countless hours she had spent studying, working multiple jobs and dreaming of something bigger. And now, Now the door to opportunity had been opened by her act of kindness and courage. Around her, the diner remained frozen. The viral attention, the fired staff, the news crew beginning to arrive outside. It was a whirlwind. But Maya's focus was singular. She looked once more at Kuan Yin, who had returned to his seat, sipping tea with quiet dignity. "Thank you," she whispered, almost to herself, though he heard. Kuan Yin nodded, a glint of something unreadable in his eyes. "This is just the beginning, Maya. Bridges take time, but you've taken the first step." Maya stared at the city skyline from the diner window, her thoughts spinning. A private meeting at Kuan Yin's foundation? With him, personally? What could it possibly entail, and how would it change her life forever? She had no idea that the next hour would set her on a path she had only dared to dream of, one that would test her courage, intelligence, and compassion like never before. The black SUV glided quietly through Atlanta's streets, Maya's hands clasped tightly in her lap. Her mind raced, images of the diner, the viral video, and Kuan Yin's calm, authoritative presence flashing through her memory. She had never imagined a simple act of kindness, greeting someone in their own language, could cascade into this whirlwind of events. When the vehicle stopped, Maya was guided up a discreet side entrance into a penthouse office that overlooked the city. The room was a harmonious blend of understated luxury, warm wood floors, sleek furniture, and walls adorned with art that spoke of culture and history. It wasn't ostentatious, but every detail radiated taste, power, and calm authority. Kuan Yin stood waiting, his expression a mixture of warmth and measured professionalism. "Welcome, Maya," he said in English, though his accent added a musical cadence to the words. "I hope the ride wasn't too stressful." Maya shook her head, unable to stop the awe in her voice. It was fine, sir. She trailed off, unsure how to express the flood of emotions coursing through her. "Please, call me Kuan Yin," he said gently. "No need for formalities here." He gestured toward a low table with plush chairs. They sat across from each other, and Maya noticed the subtle yet commanding presence he maintained, even in this quiet setting. "I wanted to meet with you personally," Kuan Yin began, "to extend an opportunity. Your actions at the diner, your respect, your understanding, your courage are exactly what we need in leadership roles at the Dragon Gate Foundation. I would like to formally offer you the position of Director of Community Outreach." Maya's mouth went dry. "Director of Community Outreach," Kuan Yin clarified, smiling. "You will have full authority to implement your ideas about cultural bridges, education, and empowerment initiatives. The work you began by simply seeing me as a person will now scale to touch thousands, even millions, through our programs." Her eyes widened, and she shook her head. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he said lightly, yet with an unmistakable authority. "And know this, the foundation will also cover your family's home mortgage and your student loans. You should not have to worry about survival while building bridges for others." Maya's hands went to her mouth as tears threatened to spill. The weight of stress, uncertainty, and years of sacrifice pressed down on her, and now it was being lifted in a single, extraordinary moment. Kuan Yin continued, "The initiative you will lead is a multi-billion-dollar program focusing on clean water access, education, and economic empowerment. Cultural inclusion is at its core. We want to create opportunities for communities historically left behind, ensuring they have the tools to thrive." Maya's mind raced. The diner, the viral video, the judgmental stares, the dismissive staff, it had all led to this. One act of recognition, one act of humanity, had created a bridge not only to a new career, but to a new future for her, her family, and her entire community. "And you," Kuan Yin said, his voice softening, "have proven that bridges are stronger than walls, that empathy and understanding are more powerful than prejudice. That is why you are here, not just as an employee, but as a leader." Maya exhaled slowly, letting the truth of the moment sink in. I I promise I won't let you down." "I know," he replied simply. "I have faith in your vision. And this," he gestured broadly toward the city sprawled beneath the windows, "is only the beginning." A week later, the streets of Atlanta were alive with cameras, reporters, and city officials. Maya stood beside Kuan Yin on the steps of City Hall, dressed in a professional suit chosen with care by his team. The public signing ceremony for the Dragon Gate Foundation's new Clean Water and Education initiative was about to begin. As Kuan Yin signed the documents, the crowd cheered. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, and Maya realized that everything, the diner, the viral video, the quiet courage, had led to this defining moment. She looked at Kuan Yin, then at the people gathered around, and understood. This was more than recognition. This was a bridge to a future she had only dreamed of, a chance to make tangible, lasting change. One act of humanity, one choice to see another person, had set a chain of events into motion that would transform lives forever. Maya stepped down from the podium, side by side with Kuan Yin, her heart pounding with anticipation and purpose. This was just the beginning, the first step of a journey that would reshape not only her own life, but the lives of countless others. And somewhere in the crowd, Bradley and the diner staff could only watch, realizing too late the power of respect, courage, and seeing people for who they truly are. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.